Hey guys, you are listening to the Unruly Doctor podcast, a podcast about life, metaphysics, current events, politics, and anything I find interesting. Please subscribe to our channel and like this episode so that we can grow and reach a bigger audience. Enjoy the episode.
All right, we're back. After a long 2-month hiatus, Dr. Bain is back with the Unruly Doctor podcast. Feels like it's been forever, probably because it has. So, if you've been living under a rock in terms of keeping up with me lately, let me hit you up with some updates. So I did recently create an update video about why the long hiatus. And, so if you didn't catch the update video on our Instagram or Facebook page or YouTube page, just to give you a down low. So, essentially, rent has gotten crazy with hyperinflation.
All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
You know the thing. So, everything's been going crazy like that. So my rent went up by about 40% in about 6 months. So my rent went from $1,700 a month to $2,400 a month in an exceedingly short amount of time. Far shorter than I was able to. I mean, yes, here's the thing. I could have afforded it, but I'm a simple guy. I'm frugal. I don't like spending a ton of money for just literally no reason. I mean, I don't do a lot at home. I sleep. I read. I mostly use it as a place to store some stuff. It's paying $2,400 a month as a single individual like myself for literally something I don't really care that much about. It was like a no-brainer. So, long story short, put in my month's notice. Sold everything that I could, donated everything that I could, bought a 30-foot 2002 travel fifth wheel RV, and I've been renovating that the last couple months, which is going to basically become a living quarters / mobile home office / podcast studio, where, I'm going to be basically pulling that thing around eventually to travel and run podcast episodes on it in parked locations to expand our viewership and our basically market ourselves. Because I think that this podcast is really, really important in the long run. So I know so far it's been a little bit spotty lately, but, hey, you can't predict the craziness that's, been happening. I mean, you could kind of predict it. I mean, we knew that all the crazy amounts of spending that we've been doing would eventually come back to bite us. And a real big obvious topic that most people are talking about is this, Texas shooting thing. And that's now a huge, I mean, literally, it's like when you're watching all of these pieces of news, to me, it's very obvious the agenda behind it. There's a lot of actual events that are happening, right? But a lot, the way that these things are presented, the way they're talked about, the way that, all of those things are going on is really the key to this whole thing, right? So, and I know we haven't talked in a long time. So, kind of let's break down, what am I seeing is happening, right? Because in the episodes previous to this one, I talked a lot about how, there was a big battle for freedom. Well, that hasn't really gotten any better, has it? The battle for freedom's actually gotten much worse since the last episode I recorded a couple months back. First of all, the amount of spending that we've been doing is easily the cause of the inflation. I mean, I'm shocked to find that people are still, trying to say, they're really following the talking points of our government that's telling us that, the hyperinflation is because of the Ukraine-Russia thing. I mean, guys, seriously, it's not even a little. It's like the smallest portion of this is that, it's the trillions of dollars we spend, and we've known this historically for a very long time, that when you just print money like crazy, and I think that the problem is I don't think a lot of people understand where our money comes from. I also don't think a lot of people know what the Federal Reserve is and don't understand that it's actually not a part of our government. It's actually owned by private corporations, and very rich people are behind that. There's a very long and rich history of how the Federal Reserve is basically it's a criminal organization. It's actually quite ingenious. Just to give you kind of like a brief explanation of how this kind of Federal Reserve game actually kind of runs, it's actually pretty insane when you look at it. Essentially, you have the government and you got the Federal Reserve, right? And so the government is a big money spender, right? So the federal government loves doing one thing, and that is maxing out credit cards, basically. They love maxing out a credit card. They're a person with a bad spending habit. They want something, they want it now, they're going to buy it, right? So recently our government was like, hey, we want to do this. 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 We want to do all this stuff. We want to do environmental stuff. We want to do, some type of social program for this. We want to write checks to everybody for COVID. We want to we want to give everybody money instead of working for like 2 years. Just like, you get a check. You get a check.
Do it!
Just do it. Everybody gets a check. It's like, it just doesn't work like that, guys. It's like, let me hit that again. You can't be just handing out money like Tic Tacs, right? But that's what we did. We just threw it out here. Well, here's the problem. Eventually, you max out the credit card. You spend all the money you can, right? Because the government has a budget, just like any business should, right? You should have a budget that you stay within, except our government doesn't stay within our budget. Our government's like, look, we got a budget. Fuck the budget. They're like, I want this, if you and I wanted to purchase something, right? Like if I wanted a new house, right? But I only had so much money, I don't have the option, right, to just rack up beyond I can't just print more money in order to afford the house, right? But that's what our government does, right? So they rack up the bill, they spend more than what they can in the budget. They then go to the Federal Reserve and they say, hey, Fed, we need you to print more money for us so that we can go do this thing. And so basically the federal government creates an order that can be bought by, that can be basically be taken by the Federal Reserve. So they take this order, they print the money, and then it's like a loan type situation. It's very odd, man. The whole situation's crazy to me. I don't know all the perfect terminology. I'm not an economist, okay? But apparently even our economists don't understand how this works, because they seem to think that, the hyperinflation we're experiencing is just poofing out of thin air. And now they're starting to admit that, that's part of their problem. But, they knew that from the beginning. But anyway, Federal Reserve goes and prints the money. Government gets their fake money. Government injects it into the economy in different ways. Well, when you inject a bunch of money in the economy, things cost more. That's just how it works, folks. I'm not an economist. I'm not a genius. And I'm not a numbers guy. A lot of my patients understand this. Okay, my number one suit, not numbers. Okay, I'm more conceptual. I got a lot of skills. I got a lot of intelligence. It's just, it's not numbers, but I do know basics. And I do know you spend a lot of money and, you rack up your credit card bill, somebody comes knocking. Okay, and in this case, it's inflation, right? So anyway, so I got hit with that, bought the trailer, did all that. That's where that's going. So, in terms of that, let's look at this for a second. Okay. As a layman, okay, I don't have any clue about deep numbers in economics, yet I know you're not supposed to do these things because it can cause inflation, because we've looked at it historically, right? There's a lot of places in history where this has been done before. This isn't like the first time a bunch of money printing went on because people just thought, hey, we keep printing, it's not going to break. It's just not, it's like, we just push it a little more, and then the snap, and then boom, it snaps. Okay. It's not the first time. Right. So, so as a person who's not an economist, I know that. Okay. So there's no way that you're going to convince me as a layman that you, as an economist at the Federal Reserve, in the government, right, at a college and university somewhere, right, the college professor is the one who thinks,
Gotcha, bitch.
I have a, oh, sorry, wrong button. Oh.
Do it.
Nope. Oh. There it is. Because I'm a college-educated professor, I have an incredible set of degrees. I know everything. Well, apparently none of these people knew that, right? But you can't convince me that. I know in my heart that those people know what happens when you overspend. You got your degree and your background in economics and finances, you know what happens historically when you overspend money and you print. We know that. They also know what happens when you increase the minimum wage, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people in our population are very, very convinced that if we increase the minimum wage, say to $15, $20, $25, they think all of our problems are going to somehow be solved. Newsflash, guys, just like when you increase spending, everything of the amount of cost, everything goes up. When you increase wages, the cost of everything just goes up with an equivalent, if not increased value over that. So if you gave it, if somebody is working in a job that's hourly and, is not a very skilled job, and this is not to rip on anybody. I've worked many jobs that weren't skilled in my life, which is why I went and got massive amounts of education, which, to be honest with you, with the way that I do things now, I could have easily done without the massive education. But a topic for another time. But you increase minimum wage, all the products go up. Like, for example, I would have no problem doing this, if Teresa or anybody who's ever worked for me needs more money, I'm willing to pay them more and take a pay cut. That's me, okay? But the reality is, if I had to increase their pay to $30 an hour, it's not in the budget. So if I had to, if Teresa was getting paid $30-$40 an hour, I need to then increase the prices that I charge to treat patients. That's just how it is, period. That's how it's going to work, and the guy down the street who runs the electric, who gets you electricity, well, he's going to do the same thing, right? All of his employees are getting paid twice as much as before. Your cost of electricity is going to go up. So then if the cost of electricity goes up, then my bill goes up. Then I need more money from you guys in order to afford to pay my overhead for keeping the lights on, right? It's a cycle like that. That's just how this works. So, if we're looking for a solution, I'll give you my take on this. But once again, I'm a layman. Go into the comments below. What do you think is the solution for this? But as a layman, but I like to think that I'm quite philosophical and I have some good ideas from time to time. Not every single idea. I wish they were all that good. But what we have is a problem in our society of keeping up with the Joneses. That's our real problem. We have a real problem in America of trying to keep up with the Joneses, where we all feel like we need a lot of stuff. We all need this stuff for some reason, right? We all need really expensive cars. We all need gigantic houses. We all need to live this life that just doesn't, it's not necessary, guys. I don't know what to tell you. We don't all need to be wearing Gucci, and you know what I mean? We don't all need to be wearing, we don't need 20 pairs of Nike Air Jordans that are 300, 200, 400, 500 a piece. We don't need it. You don't need that purse made by who cares? I don't even remember. Michael Kors, there's one. I don't care about any of that stuff, but I pick one. Michael Kors, right? Sorry, Mike. I don't think your purse is worth whatever you're charging, but we don't need all this stuff. It's crap. It's a replacement. It's a lack of something, and you are trying to stuff it with stuff, right? The giant razor thing, hey, I'm sorry, I got a lot of patients who love razors. All right. So I know this is gonna grill you right now, but do you really need a $30,000 to $40,000 four-wheeling dune buggy, razor thing with all the accoutrements that cost you $1,000 a weekend just to run it? Do you really need that? Or could you just rent it a couple times a year for a lot less from a company, supporting a small business to do that? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't think people need it. It's because here's the thing. The more you fall into that system, the more in debt you become, then you never get out. And that's why no one ever has enough of what they really need, which is just kind of enough saved up to where you don't have to worry if stuff hits the fan like this. Like, if you have money set aside, assets set aside, you're living below your means. When the economy takes a dump like this, you don't really, and here's the thing, the economy wouldn't ever really take a dump like this if our government didn't act the way it did. If our government ran like a good small business would, like a normal person who follows a budget and doesn't spend above their means and actually lives below their means, if that's how our government works, I don't think you'd ever see a dip in the economy. In fact, I think you just see consistent, a small percentage growth every year. I think you'd probably just grow 3-4% every year, which is typically what you see happen with GDPs, usually around that level, I believe. Now, don't quote me. So Once again, if I'm wrong, comment in the section below. But you know, just like an average small business, when the government's not sitting here putting a stranglehold on you, we tend to do pretty fine each year. The less the government's involved and the less money that gets spent. I think that's just kind of obvious economics. So if our government just kind of ran like that, we wouldn't really have to worry about these things, right? But it's also a spending problem in the United States. We just love spending and we love buying stuff we don't need. Guys, when I did my move, I can't even tell you how much shit I had to donate. I did so many trips to Goodwill. It was unreal. And then I started keeping like a mental tab of how much money I was spending. I mean, how much money I was giving away. It must have been like $5,000 worth of stuff. And that was after I sold like $3,000 worth of stuff. I mean, that's crazy. I'm a single individual. I've only had an actual job for 3 years now since I started the clinic after being in college for like 99.9% of my life in education, right? Which, one of these days I'll have a whole topic on that, how ridiculous that whole thing is. But, what we really have here in this country is a spending problem that's fueled by a lack of spiritual substance. So that's where this is finally coming around, getting into health, because I know the last couple of episodes have been real doom and gloom, right? But you have to know about the Schwab, the Klaus Schwab. Maybe I'll do another episode on Klaus Schwab. He's like he's literally like what? Oh shit! Doctor. He's like Dr. Evil. Klaus Schwab. We all have a spending problem. It is the poor people. We have to do things for them. They have a spending problem. So that's Klaus. But what we really have is a spiritual lacking, and that's no more personified than what happened recently in Texas in the shooting. Right. This is a lack of spiritualism. It's a spiritual warfare is really not I don't love that term. I don't know. It feels right, but it feels wrong and right at the same. It feels so. My mind's telling me no, but my body is telling me yes. It doesn't feel quite accurate, but it's close. Where, especially in youth, right, in these underdeveloped minds, I think there's several factors as to why, for example, the Texas thing happened and why it relates to lack of spiritualism and how it's a greater lack of spiritualism and spiritual development and practice in the majority of the population now. But, I think there were several factors, right? So number one, the media hasn't been showing really a lot of pictures of this, but the individual involved in that tragic incident was definitely very sexually confused. So he's got pictures where, he's she or whatever. So probably I'm gonna take a wild guess from the images and things of how they presented themselves that they were sexually confused about if they were a man or a woman, which is number one of the topics that by far is going to be one of the number one reasons why kids have this massive gap of depression, suicidalness, confusion, because, I mean, you got to look at it this way, right? These are underdeveloped minds. These are people who are trying to find their way in the world. Why do I exist? What do I want out of my future? My body's changing. The media is telling me this. TikTok tells me this. Facebook tells me this. YouTube tells me this. The television tells me this. Nobody claps for me if I'm normal, but everybody cheers me on if I have a lot of odd labels, and then fortunately this is the case, guys, and I'm not sitting here at all saying that if somebody truly is a man, thinks they're a woman, cool, just leave it at that. I don't care. Really, I don't care. But that's not what's happening now. What's happening now is a series of indoctrination in schools. It's on the television, it's on the radio, it's on TikTok, it's on every Facebook video, it's on Netflix specials, it's on everything, where it's like they're making it try to appear that just being the person you were born is abnormal and wrong or not cool, or it has all of that energy surrounding it, and it's very obvious what's happening. I don't think anybody is honestly sitting here not able to recognize that there's an actual agenda going on here of people purposely pushing a specific narrative that fits a very small minority of the actual human population. it's not that there are no real trans people. That's not what I'm saying in a case like this. It's just that all of a sudden now we have massive influxes of kids at that age, right? At the age of this individual and younger, who now all of a sudden they're all sexually confused. Every single one of them has odd labels: pansexual, bisexual, asexual, transsexual, demisexual. I can't even keep track of them all. There's so many labels. I gave up. I'm sorry. I gave up. He, her, him, them, it, they, who, bop, 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 bop. It's all, unfortunately, it's a lot of word salad that just confuses that 99% of people out here. And if it confuses you as the 99% of adult brains out there, it's damn sure going to confuse a very underdeveloped mind. Anywhere between the ages of 3 and 20 years old is a developing brain. If it confuses me, and I've spent a lot of time trying to understand this whole thing, I can't imagine what it's going to do to a child. Even at 18, your child, man, your brain is still, you're still so stuck in like that gut, just going with my feelings. They don't use their brain, they just use their feelings. So, if their doctor or the media or a buddy or, God forbid, their parent tells them, hey, maybe you're just, maybe you're confused about this and that. Look, man, here's the thing. I got a lot of, for example, gay family members. My dad's gay. My uncle's gay. I got more gay family members than you can count. And I love each and every one of them. Here's the thing. They all knew they were gay. No one had to tell them they were gay. Nobody had to go up to any one of my gay family members and say, hey man, I think you're gay. They already knew. I talked to my dad about this a long time ago. My dad knew he was gay like when he was 6. He already knew he was attracted to boys when he was 6. So here's the reality, guys. I'm sorry, but if you're going up to like really young kids 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 year old, 7 year old, 8. If you're going to these very young kids, teenagers and things like that, and you're trying to put it into their head that they're more than just, if there's something else than heterosexual, you're putting that in there. The ones who are actually in a different version outside of the average heterosexual mindset, they already start to know on their own. They come to you and ask a question, on their own. They don't need a television prompting them to go ask. Okay, like here's a really concerning one the other day, and I've seen this multiple times, by the way. I'm on my computer and I get an ad. There's an ad in the top right corner on one of my web pages, and it's got a big pride flag on it, and it says, "Quiz, are you gay? Hit this quiz and then to see if you're gay." That's freaking crazy, man. Like, gay people know they're gay. Gay people don't need a quiz. Okay. You know what I mean? Gay people don't need a quiz, guys. So, I met enough gays. The gays don't need a quiz to know if they're gay. How long is this test? Are you attracted to penis? Yes. It's like, do you wake up with thoughts of men touching you every night? Can you get an erection if you see a woman? No. Damn, I must be gay. I had no idea. It's crazy. Seriously, that's propaganda, right? Because what that's going to do then is someone who's a normal, developing, but sexually confused teenager, which is just being teenagers, right? Teenagers are sexually confused. This is why we all know this when you go to college, right? You go to college, 2 girls are making out. They do it one time and they say, oop, I guess I'm not into girls, but I guess we'll kiss every time we're drunk at a party. I'm just telling it how it is. I lived the college lifestyle. I've seen it a million times. I've talked to enough people. Just general life experience. It's a thing. We all know this is a thing. Okay, so I hope no one's getting, seriously, we got to stop being so insulted by everything. That's just kind of been, we can look at it on the world objectively and see it happens all the time. And this is not just me, I know, that sees that. So, you know what I mean? And they quickly figured out, oh, that's not for me. As a guy, you know what I mean? It's, in any time in my life, I have not once, not ever, singularly in even a small moment, ever thought to myself, I wonder if I'm a woman. Not once. And the vast majority of the population is under that exact same guise. They never question not even a single thought probably in their entire life, where am I the opposite gender than I was, when I'm born? Because, I have a part, and that's the part that I'm supposed to have, right? So now there's about a very, 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 very less than 1% of the population who does feel that way from a very early age. But that's what it really is. It's that teeny weeny, 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 weeny section. So all of a sudden, when you see in 2 years, seriously, 1 to 2 years, a giant influx of children who now have all of these weird labels that are being taught to them through these social media networks and their teachers who should never even be talking about this stuff, right? So now imagine I'm already a disgruntled youth. Okay. We don't know in this case, in the Texas shooting, right, what his home life was like. I got to imagine probably not great in some aspect. Maybe he was abused. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he was an outcast at his school. I'm sure these things were there. They usually are. You do that. Now you add it on top of that sexual confusion, which from the pictures we've seen, very likely that he was probably questioning his sexuality, not because he should have been probably questioning his sexuality if life was allowed to happen normally like it has for thousands of years, right? Instead of trying to make every child from, very young ages up to teenagers now constantly question if they're a boy, a girl, who do they like, which label do they pick, what's the cool label to have, right? None of us had to deal with that, which is why we turned out a heck of a lot more normal, and we didn't see all these crazy shooting incidents that they see now. So then you add that in. Then there's step 3, and I know this is controversial for all the drug poppers out there, the drug pushers, but the psychiatric medications that we're now putting kids on constantly, all the ADHD medications like Ritalin and all this other garbage, the SSRI drugs, all of those, benzodiazepines and all this other garbage for, all these different psychiatric medications. Okay, we have studies now showing that when kids are on these things, we've done multiple studies now showing that there is an association between taking psychiatric medication and violent behavior, suicidal behavior and violent behavior towards others and themselves. So we've established this connection now. We know it's there. Now, in terms of the studies that I've read, the studies are typically showing it's about 1%. Now, that really does, at least on an outside level, you don't know for sure, right? But on an outside level, as our population continues to grow, which it has every so often, and we continue to get bigger, 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 well, and you start prescribing drugs to literally every child now. I mean, every kid that comes in my clinic to get treated is on like a million drugs already. They're on drugs for diabetes already. They're on drugs for blood pressure sometimes already as a teenager. They're on beta blockers. They're on psychiatric meds. I mean, what the hell are they not on? They're on the kitchen sink and they're like 14 years old. And it's by no shock that they're underweight. Their skin tones are all pale. They're depressed. They have massive humps in their neck and back because they're constantly slouched and trying to hide away from you. They don't want to look at you like this. They're always looking away. They don't want to talk to you. And a lot of times when one of my younger patients comes in, they're always looking to their parent to talk to me for them. And some of these kids are like 18 years old. Guys, this is a problem, okay? And if you're a parent of one of these kids, I am begging you, please, you got to work harder. And I'm not trying to rip on you. Please don't take any offense to that. But I can tell you right now, your school, your doctor, right? They aren't going to do squat for your kid to prevent these types of things from happening. You have to be the one to do it. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. They're your kid. You're the only one that's going to be able to pull them out of this garbage. Starting, number one, with these drugs. Okay. So, now we have a trifecta, right, of things that are, to me, make a lot of sense about where this all of a sudden led to, right? Number one, once again, probably a bad home life, right? So bad home life, bad school life, social aspect, lack of spirituality, lack of God molecule in the body being developed. So that's number one. Number two, sexual confusion, thinks he's probably a girl when he's a guy. Deep down, he's obviously then probably a guy, but then when someone puts it in your head as a teenager in a sexually confusing time that you're probably a woman, And it's the cool thing to do because it's all over TikTok. It's all over CNN. It's all over late night talk shows being complimented. Like this is healthy for the vast majority of people to live that lifestyle, right? Mentally. So now you're trying to force a situation to happen that's not actually true to your soul, right? Like once again, people who, when you know, and you know a lot earlier, and you don't need nobody has to tell you for you to know. So, at least not in my life experience of meeting people who genuinely follow that lifestyle or any lifestyle similar to that. And once again, I'm not ripping on it. I love my family members who are gay, and I love people who are actually transsexual. I also love the ones who think they're transsexual who aren't. And I actually, because I love them so much, I want to help them and I want to pull them out of this psychosis that's been created for them that's really negatively affecting them. To me, it's very obvious why these incidents are starting to happen more often. And it has nothing to do with the fact that we have guns. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. If you go pass a gun law because of this Texas shooting thing to take away guns from law-abiding citizens, it's going to have literally, and I'm going to tell you this right now, predict this right now, zero impact. None. In fact, I think it's going to do the opposite. I think if you ban more guns from law-abiding citizens and you take away, say, for example, an AR-15 from law-abiding citizens, which is one of the best defense rifles that you can have, right? Number one, they're still going to probably get one from somewhere, black market, other places. Criminals will always get a gun from somewhere. That's how it works. So, they're still going to get a gun. Then the problem is now we have no one to get in there to save these people with our own guns, right? Unfortunately, now I would love to live in a world where no guns exist anywhere, right? I would love to live in a world where everybody loves each other, respects each other, and we follow for example, I'm not a Christian, but Jesus had some great stuff, and Jesus was like, look, man, there's a real simple rule. You just have to love each other. And I think he's very right. All I do all day long is live in this thing right here. I live in my brain all day long, and I try to push its limits into understanding why are we here and what are we doing. And I came to that conclusion all on my own, even without the words of great philosophers like Jesus Christ. And, love really is the boiling down of this whole system. We have to just love each other, regardless of a difference in opinion, a difference in skin color, a difference in socioeconomic status. You have to learn how to love someone who has more stuff than you. And you have to learn how to love someone who has less stuff than you. Because here's the thing, it's like a lot of people in terms of that, everybody wants to be perfectly equal. If everybody was perfectly equal all the time in 24/7, none of us would ever spiritually develop ourselves. If everything was done for us, if we never had to work hard, if we never had to live a bad situation, you'd literally learn no lessons, that valuable lessons about how to progress your soul, because that's what life really is. Life is really just a progression of your soul and learning different lessons at different stages at the right time. But I digress on that. There's plenty of times where we can talk about that, but focusing in on this shooter situation, on top of the fact that I think it's those three things, the drugs, the sexual confusion, and the probably likely bad home life, that caused a person to do this, not because they were able to have access to a gun. If their home life was loving and correct and their birthing was loving and correct in all those aspects. Now, I can't confirm that, and I'm sure none of us could confirm that, because a family who's not treating their family member very well or taking care of them very well. Now, once again, I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know in a lot of these cases that tends to be the case. But, whatever was happening there, that love, truly loving this individual, giving this person love, listening to them and putting in full effort would have probably helped at least some. But obviously, number two, getting them off the psychiatric medications that they never probably should have been on, because, these days, in terms of, and this is once again a lack of spiritual molecule, lack of the spirit molecule being developed. When we have problems now, we just want to cover them up. Okay. When your kids are suffering, or when the teenagers suffering with depression, instead of sitting down and digging into it about where is the depression coming from, how do we actually slowly unravel the layers of that depression, instead we just throw a pill on it. We Prozac it. We Zantac, not Zantac. We Xanax it. We do whatever, right? We put Ritalin in them. if they can't focus, instead of just saying, look, this kid doesn't fit the mold. Back in the day, if a kid didn't fit the mold, you worked with it. You didn't just pop them full of drugs. You know what I mean? Maybe we just make a better system when someone doesn't fit into the current system. We have just a modified system that fits them better. If this kid can't sit 6 hours a day in a chair staring at a person talking all day, which, to be honest with you, I was one of those kids. I couldn't do that. I can't focus for 6 hours watching somebody talk about, equations and, geometry and all this. It was so boring to me. And it was because it had nothing to do with my life's purpose. That was part of it. Right. So, one of these days we can talk more about, why that is, but we need to accommodate those things where it's like, look, maybe this kid needs to be outside a lot more with minimal bursts of education, and they'll do a lot better that way. There's other ways around that. Another solution, obviously, we got to get spiritualism back in, where it's like, look, man, there's a lot more happening here than the system we've created. I think that is another source of the mental health incidents that we're having now in high numbers is I think that the souls of these new kids, and most of these souls, some of them are brand new souls. So you might, if you haven't listened to me talk about stuff like that, you can go back into previous episodes and you can learn how, the physical meat, this meaty body, it's just a vehicle. It's a car, inside of this car is a soul, an energy body, an energy soul that has inhabited many other bodies. So it's kind of a funny thing to say, well, you don't know anything, you're just a kid. Well, that kid may have that younger vehicle may actually have a soul that's twice as old as yours, so they actually might be older than you, even though you have an older beat up vehicle than they do in this lifetime, in this incarnation. So, I think that's probably where the old saying comes from sometimes, or the feeling that comes from, where sometimes, kids really teach you stuff, not you teaching them stuff. Let that boggle your mind for a bit. And it's probably because a lot of their souls are a lot older than you think, and they are actually probably teaching you something they learned in a past lifetime. But getting back into that conversation about spiritual growth and serving a purpose, right? And that's the thing, is these days, a lot of people have a lack of purpose. Sorry, there's like a little fly and he won't leave me alone. Get out of here. But a lot of these kids these days, and I think a lot of adults, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of depression in adults and things as well, is that there's a total lack of drive. There's a lack of purpose. There's a lack of, why am I here? What is my bigger purpose? How do I serve? That's a big thing, right? That's why I love what I do. That's not to brag. It's that because I know exactly what my purpose here is, and I can teach you ways to how to figure that out for yourself. It's actually not that difficult, as long as you're open-minded. Through meditation and some other techniques I can teach you. When you know that you're serving the exact purpose of why you are here, and you understand that this isn't the first time that you're here, and a lot of other details that, we'll discuss over many years to come as this podcast grows huge, which I'll read some stuff that revelations I got recently from some of the testing I did to say how big this is actually going to get. This is going to be a huge podcast. It's going to be awesome. But that's one of the reasons why these kids are so depressed, is they have no freaking clue as to why are they here. All they are taught is, here's how you pass these exams, and here's this chicken scratch way to do math, and blah, blah, blah. And, now you got to go to college, where undergrad, they don't teach you squat. So you're going to go to undergrad to do squat, and then you're going to go have a job where you work for a massive corporation, and then you're going to retire and you're going to die. These kids aren't stupid. I think a lot of people are not giving these kids enough credit. They're not stupid. I think that's the problem, is because they're awake. This new generation is the first set of souls to come down here, and part of this mission to change the Earth's trajectory. So I'm a part of that. There's 3 waves to that. I'm part of the second wave. This new generation is part of a third wave of souls that have reincarnated in order to change the way the earth is working, right? And because they're part of this third wave, they already have all of the gifts and knowledge that they need in order to change this thing in the final push. The problem is when you come to earth, you forget the plan. That's part of coming to earth. That's why it's one of the most difficult learning experiences in your soul time as a being. So because they forget the plan, they get here. Now they're all confused. That's why they're so depressed, because they know deep down somewhere in their subconscious that there's something bigger that they're supposed to be accomplishing. So then doing these menial things like grade school, doing menial tasks, sports, things like that they don't feel are at all important to the greater good makes them depressed, and it makes them feel lonely, and it makes them feel apart from God, apart from the source, apart from the universe, whatever you'd like to say, and that they're not fulfilling their soul mission. So that's where the suicidalness comes from, the aggressiveness comes from, the need for an outlet, the drug use, everything else that we're seeing. So, I think that's obviously one of the biggest factors in this Texas shooting that led to this. And then on top of that, of course, the police not doing anything either. But I'm not going to dig that quite deep into that, because there's going to be plenty of YouTubers and other people out there, podcasters and whatnot, who are going to dig way deep into that stuff. And I don't really care to dig that much deeper into the police side of it, because it's just when you do a good job versus a bad job, it's pretty obvious. And that was just not a good job. And I wouldn't really call it like a job at all. But, I don't hold feelings of anger anymore towards anybody or anything, because anger doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't serve anything. It doesn't solve anything either. So, so that's that with the whole Texas shooting thing and my kind of take on that and where do I think that's coming from. So I hope that resonates with you guys as well. So comment down below if that resonates with you. Hit a like, hit a subscribe button if you haven't yet to any of our channels. So I definitely talked about that. Now, another thing I was going to tell you guys also, I got my journal here where I've been realizing recently a lot of the things I'm doing as for research on, research on a lot of things, research on the mind, research on the body, research on, where does disease really come from? Is it self-generated? If it's self-generated, where is the source? Why do a lot of people get stuck in diseases and can't come out of them? Some people are supposed to die that way and some aren't and still do, because they weren't addressing things and, whatnot. And so I was at breakfast this morning and, I was thinking about the podcast and things like that. And then, as I was drinking my coffee in the car, oh, here comes a sneeze. Hold on. Oh man, it's gonna be one of those sneezes that holds around. Here it comes. Oh gosh. Oh, it's not gonna come. Okay. But I wrote down what happened, because there's a lot of significant things that happened to me throughout the day, angel numbers and revelations of ideas and things like that. And I haven't been writing them down, and I really should, because a lot of you guys want to hear my, I call it research because it's the only thing I can think of. I just don't run double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. I just continue to try things out and see what works and what doesn't work, and then I make mental notes and I don't do what doesn't work anymore. But I had been thinking about the podcast, and then all of a sudden an angel number popped up, angel number 811. So I wrote a section, and then I wrote a giant paragraph, which I think I want to read to you, because I really feel it was strangely profound. I don't want to toot my own horn, but, and I don't even know if it came from me. That was I even wrote that when I wrote cause I was writing so easily, and it felt like somebody was speaking through me, and it wasn't really me. I don't know how to explain that, but that's the best way I could explain it. The first part sounds like me. I don't think the big part that's more profound sounds like me. It does and it doesn't. But let me read this to you. So this is today. So it's 5/29/22. This is before 8 o'clock in the morning. Went to get coffee. Was thinking about the podcast and questioning if I could really get to 4 to 5 million followers. So I did some self-testing, self-muscle testing, and self-muscle testing told me that within 3 years, this podcast is going to have 4 to 5 million followers if I do everything correctly. And I follow my predetermined life path for this. So that's a mind-bogglingly large number. I mean, that makes me at like Russell Brand level. So I really hope that's true. But the thing is, if we hope it's true, then maybe it'll come true. If you know it's going to come true, it will come true. So I know it's going to happen. So let me continue. So it says in 3 years, angel number 811 showed up on the clock. So I went and I looked up what angel number 811 means. So angel number 811 speaks about self-belief, the ability to persevere, and significantly not to give up on your dreams. So in a previous episode, I was teaching you guys how to utilize angel numbers and how to interpret them. So I just knew you got to listen to your intuition more. My intuition told me that 811 when I saw that, because I've seen that a lot lately. I keep seeing 811, 911 consistently throughout every day. I just keep catching that number. So when I was thinking about the podcast and I was questioning myself, right, and I was already starting to write this down about the 4 to 5 million follower thing, starting to question, I'm like, is that really real? Am I making that up? Is that me hoping that that's going to happen? And then when you get an angel number confirmation that basically tells you to stop self-limiting yourself, tells you to that you have an incredible ability to persevere and not to give up on your dreams. When you see that, you know, that's a confirmation for me. So let me continue reading on, because this is when it starts to get real profound. And I was like, as I was writing it, because it was writing so easy, I didn't really have to think about what to say next. It literally just, I was like, somebody's channeling me and I don't know quite who it is. All right, let me read this. So, tends to continually amaze me how life actually works, but how our own self-limiting beliefs create our realities. We always are looking for someone else to blame for our own misfortunes. Little do people realize that most, albeit not all, misfortunes are typically created by ourselves, sometimes by the higher version of ourselves to learn something, sometimes by our self-destructive nature. As I continue to push the limits of what I am told is impossible or ludicrous, I only continue to be emboldened by constant reaffirmations that I am on the right path. If people only knew their true potential and capability to immediately change their circumstances with only the power of their mind, we would all live wonderfully better and more fulfilling lives. Even as I write this short piece, I'm not even quite sure I am writing it or if the message comes from another place. Regardless, the message still holds true, and I am excited to achieve my goals in the very near future, which many will have deemed to be impossible. So that's what I wrote down this morning when I was having breakfast. After I wrote that, I was like, man, somebody channeled up in there. I was like, where's the is there a clapping one?
Gotcha, bitch.
Nope.
Oh, man.
Ah, darn. Well, it was magical. There we go. I'm going to keep using that one. It was a magical experience. It was a very profound moment where I felt like, wow, this is really cool. I mean, something really happened there that was outside of my mind. It was me, but it wasn't me at the same time. But yet, like I wrote down, it was still very true, is this thing where it's like we are the creators of our own destruction most of the time. You know, it is being stuck in your own mind about feeling bad about things. Like, for example, right? You know, there's different perspectives on how to look at situations. There's always two perspectives. You know, there's always a better perspective, and there's always a more negative perspective on situations. You know, you have to look at tragedy in positive lights of what are we learning from tragedies? What are we learning from life's hurdles? You have to look at it that way. Otherwise, you really are going to live a very unhappy life in this reincarnation experience that you're having. And if you don't learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn and solve the karmic attachments that you're supposed to solve, you will continue to come back here and have to re-experience these same lessons in different versions over and over again. And it's a really unfortunate truth that happens to a lot of people. I've solved all my karmic attachments currently, and I don't plan on getting any new ones. So this is my last incarnation as a human being, as a human body. There's testing I've done to confirm that in multiple different ways. People, not even just me telling me that, based upon, for example, my astrological signs and planetary alignments already tell me I'm pretty much on the end, as well as deep meditations and muscle testings that I've done that basically say, yeah, this is the last. I only came back for another incarnation essentially to be part of this huge push to change the direction of planet Earth so that we stop doing this cycle of self-destruction that we continue to do. And that's the real problem, is people need to learn how to get out of these self-destructive things that we continue to get into. I think that Texas shooting was just another perfect example of how we are self-creating more issues for ourselves that then lead to more destruction. By not following the rules of how this is all supposed to really work. This is actually, the Earth is supposed to be a beautiful thing. This is the real shame of what's happening to our planet and how we conduct ourselves as people, is that this is supposed to be a beautiful place that's very self-regulatory, and the gifts of technology, the gifts of knowledge that we've been given here are supposed to be utilized for our benefits. I was thinking about that this morning, where it's like, every time a bit of knowledge is given to us that's supposed to be used for something beautiful, it does for a very short period of time, but then somebody takes it and weaponizes it or does something awful with it. For example, when higher beings, higher intelligences, God, the source, basically shot down the knowledge and how to do nuclear technology to certain individuals on this planet, and they invented nuclear technology. That technology was meant to help us create nuclear power, so that we could have, non-carbon emitting power sources that essentially were infinite. That's what that was for. The issue is then we created the atomic bombs, and now we've gone as far as hydrogen bomb. We just keep pushing the limits. Now we have hydrogen bombs, which is, I believe, like 100 Nagasaki's in one, which is just insane to me. Like, why do you need that? We didn't even need the Nagasaki bomb. We didn't even need that one. The Hiroshima bomb, we didn't even need that one. And now we've got 100 of those in one, and we probably have 1,000 of those. Well, and we need to learn how to change the desires that we have when we incarnate into physical bodies. That's the real issue, is that there's a version of yourself that is infinitely more intelligent and has infinite levels more of knowledge and has the entire basis for all the lives that you've lived, all the existences that you've had. And not all of your existences typically have been human. Some people's has. Mine hasn't. For example, I recently did some self-testing where I figured out I lived 450 years as just a rock. And so then because I like researching, and I like self-researching internal knowledge. I'm like, okay, so I start asking questions. When I do this self-testing, I'm like, well, why was I a rock? Was it to learn a lesson? Yes. Well, what lesson was it? First lesson that popped in my mind that would make sense is patience. I said, was it to learn patience? Yes, it was. Oh, that makes sense. How else do you learn the concept of patience any better than if you're just a rock and you can't do anything but just be? You got plenty of time to be patient. So not all of your existences have always been human. This is just a very unique vessel that's been created to create a unique experience, to learn things in a very unique way that you can't do in other versions. So we need to learn, though, to curb the desires that then are created here because of the free will we have, the ability to take people in and out of this existence, right, which is killing people. And you're not killing a person, you're killing the vehicle. So that's why when great tragedies happen, albeit these are really unfortunate circumstances, I don't harbor serious feelings of sadness and anger and a lot of the things that other people feel anymore, because I understand that the soul that inhabited that vehicle is just in another reality, another dimension. They're going to reincarnate again into another body. But the real unfortunate piece of that death, that murder, that whatever, it's the process. It's the tragedy of it that we need to change, is why somebody would think it's okay to inflict that type of, and I call it mental, because the physical body, once it's dead, it passes. It's a car. It's like if I drove my car into a tree right now, the person who drove the vehicle isn't the car, right? The car is totaled, but the person is still, alive. But the person then holds on to that trauma. They hold on to the mental trauma of the event. So, you know, and that kind of digs into the separation of the different types of bodies that you have. For example, the meat body, right? The body that is in the physical reality that you could touch, I can touch, and I perceive the world with. That's the food body. That's the body that's made up of physical things. This body ceases to exist if I cease to eat and drink food and water, right? So it's made up of what you eat. That's why you are what you eat, right? Physically. So if you eat a bunch of garbage, you smoke cigarettes, you drink alcohol, you're not going to have great health. You eat healthy food, you limit how much red meat you have, you meditate, you do good things, you take care of your vehicle, you'll have good vehicle health. That's a physical body. Outside the physical body is the mental body. So that's what I'm talking about, is the mental body is the second piece to human existence. And the mental body, as well as the physical body, and then outside of the mental body is the energy body. All three of those remember trauma. So when you have an incident like the Texas shooting, once again, I don't feel these internalized feelings of sadness and anger, and I'm not going to get uproared and physically disturbed and not be able to sleep for days and all these things because of this, because I understand that the souls of the people that were lost, I mean, in terms of losing their physical bodies, they still exist. All of those individuals still exist. Energy cannot be created, nor can it be destroyed. You know, where the real tragedy is that somebody felt the right to be able to take someone's human experience and shorten it, on top of the fact that they have now generated negative karma and attached it to each and every one of those people's three bodies. And so now that karma is going to have to be resolved in another incarnation between this individual and those individuals later. So that's where the real tragedy is that all those people are going to have to reincarnate again, and they're going to hash this out again about where that karma is going to be balanced out. The system of karma is not negative nor positive. It's just a balance. So if I do something, we need to do something in order to balance it back. You know, now that doesn't mean that when these children and these teachers and people who passed from their bodies into another dimension or wherever they're going, when they reincarnate, right, that doesn't mean they get to go kill this other individual. It's not like it'd be a mass beating of 17 people beating down this one individual soul. It'll have to be a situation where it balances in a loving way. You know, maybe that individual who caused this marriages of tragedy maybe has a event in another life where he saves all 17 of those people from a great tragedy. You know, for one off the top of my head is maybe he's a bus driver and all 17 of those people are passengers in his bus, and he heroically, you know, saves them from an active shooter, or by sacrificing himself, you know, when an active shooter comes on a bus, or maybe he drives them to safety from a, you know, tornado. I don't know, something like that, that would repay it back in a loving way, is where that karma is going to hash out eventually, you know. But, you know, whether you want to believe that or not, that's okay. I mean, I made this podcast because I am called to expand the knowledge base of people to where we can get out of our boxes, you know, our self-limiting belief systems of where we're not open enough because of our belief systems to even say, well, maybe, you know. The things that I'm talking about now are not anything I ever would have talked about for any other year in my entire life. But as my life plan began to unfold, and as I became more open to how my life was supposed to unfold, it was by no chance that the knowledge was placed to me over time. And that because of the way that I am made, I have a unique set of skills in order to portray that information to, you know, other people. I have a great ability to be able to, number one, open people up to the concepts, you know, to where, hey, they're willing to listen. And then number two, explain why do I think what I think, and then handing them information that they can do with whatever they want. That's one of my unique abilities. That's why I was chosen for what I'm doing. And why I chose probably to do what I'm doing is because I have a unique set of skills that are very good at this. So, I know that that's already quite a bit to, I don't know, absorb for a lot of people, because that sounds pretty, I know half of what I just said sounds absolutely crazy. And I hope that nobody takes away from that I don't have empathy for what happened recently. I do have empathy for the people who have to suffer the mental trauma of losing a person earlier than they're supposed to, in terms of this lifetime and incarnation. It's everybody deserves to live their life up to the point at which they are supposed to. The thing is, you never know at what point that was supposed to be. For some of those people, that maybe was how they were supposed to go. I don't know. We don't know that. There's so many intricacies to the design of life where that may have been some people's time to go. It may not have been. We won't know for sure until we're all dead, and we get to ask the questions of those individuals who were on the other side and who saw the bigger picture that we couldn't see as a conscious human being. That's, once again, that's part of the human experience, is you cut off all ties in terms of the conscious mind, at least for the most part, not completely, because there's ways to start expanding that, which I'm working on even in my own body right now. But, for the most part, you're cut off from the full picture in order to be able to learn, right? If life's a great test, and it wouldn't be a good test if you knew all the answers, as very smart people would say. So that's a lot to absorb already, guys. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Unruly Doctor podcast. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please go down, hit the like button, hit subscribe, leave me a comment, follow the YouTube page. It's called Springback Chiropractic on YouTube right now, but I think I'm going to change it to the Unruly Doctor, because I can highly sense that that's where my life is supposed to go. And according to self-testing, that is also where this is supposed to go as well. I hope you guys love this episode. Please like and share it. Have a great day.